Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. I'm so glad you're here. I picked up some cool metal tables that somebody had left out on the curb. And what I want to do is upcycle those tables. So today we're going to upcycle this one. And I'm really looking forward to giving it some new life. Let's go have some fun. So here's the table. And it's 3 legs, which are held together in the middle by that little Y-shaped piece. And then it's attached to the tabletop with 3 screws. So I'm just going to begin by unscrewing the top from the legs and removing the top. And what I want to do is create a new top, and obviously it's going to have to be the right size and shape so that I can attach it to those legs. So I'm just going to sketch out a turtle, and that's going to be the shape of my top. And my drawing pad isn't quite big enough for the complete turtle, so I'll improvise his flippers when I trace him out on the piece of wood. Now, I had this piece of plywood in my basement. I think it's 1/2-inch plywood, and it's got a finished side. And so I'm cutting out my turtle and just tracing him onto the plywood and finishing up his flippers. Now, cutting out the turtle is laborious. I'm using a saber saw or a handheld jigsaw, and I don't really have a great setup for this. So I'm just clamping this piece of plywood down to this table as best I can and doing this in very small bits. So the main thing that I have to be careful of is that I don't run into the table with the jigsaw. It looks a lot faster and easier on the video. Now I want the turtle to have a shell which is separate from the turtle body and which I will place on top of the turtle body. But I don't have any more plywood in my basement. But I do have pallet wood. You know, I always have pallet wood. And I thought this would give him a fun sort of handmade or even driftwoody sort of look. So I've picked some pieces of pallet that are roughly the same thickness, but different widths. And I've placed them on top of the turtle and traced out the shell, and then I am just cutting them with my saber saw. Now here's what it looks like with the shell pieces on top of the plywood piece. What I have here is my mouse sander with a 60 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand everything down, tops, bottoms, and edges. Now I'm just going to make sure that this is completely clean and free of dust, and then I'm going to glue the shell together. And I'm doing this top of the shell down, and that's because they're not all exactly the same height. So I was hoping if I did top of the shell down that the top of the shell would be level or flat, even if the bottom isn't completely level or flat. And so I have the turtle upside down, and I've put just some backing from contact paper between the turtle and the shell so that no glue leaks through and sticks the shell to the turtle before I'm ready for that. But I really need the turtle there to make sure I get the shell shape correct. And then I'm just going to use some wood glue between each of the boards of the shell and glue them together. Now I'm going to paint the top of the turtle, and I'm going to paint it with my absolute favorite coastal colors, and that's the Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in Cascade, that's the bluer color, and Grotto, that's the greener color. And what I'm doing is I'm painting it with the Cascade, the blue color, and then just dragging some of the Grotto, the green color, through it while it's still wet. And I'm only painting the flippers, the head, the feet, and around the edges. I'm leaving the middle raw wood because I'm going to be gluing the turtle shell there. And I'm also going to paint the edges, and I'm going to use the same paint technique. And I do want the edges painted all the way around. Now, to give the turtle sort of an interesting pattern on his flippers, I'm going to use this mesh ribbon, or a ribbon that I bought at Amazon, which is basically the same pattern as this mesh ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I had a piece of the ribbon from Amazon already cut, and that's why I'm using that one. And I'm going to use it as a sort of a stencil. So I'm just placing it over the edges of the flippers, and I'm using the grotto, and I'm just pouncing that over the lace ribbon to get a sort of turtle effect. And I just kept moving the ribbon along. Because there isn't any particular pattern to this, it doesn't matter if I move the ribbon around in different places. It doesn't matter where it goes, as long as it, looks reasonably natural. So I used different parts of the ribbon because the ribbon's wider than the area that I'm stenciling. And I also did the edges because I did want this pattern to come down on the edges of the flippers where I had put it on the flippers. Now for the turtle's shell, I did want this to look like driftwood, and while I do love the way this wood looks, I felt like it was a little too yellow to look like driftwood. So I just mixed up some apple barrel black and white paint to make a gray color, put a lot of water in that, and washed it over the entire shell and then dried it with a paper towel. And this just makes it a little bit gray, and definitely to me looks more like driftwood. Now I'm going to take a kitchen sponge and cut out a starfish shape. And I'm just using this plastic starfish from the Dollar Tree as a sort of a guide for that starfish shape. And I am making two starfish. One is smaller, so I can almost get the smaller starfish out of a kitchen sponge. It's just missing a little bit of one of its arms. And then I made a larger one in two pieces, so 3 arms and then 2 arms from another kitchen sponge. Now I painted the turtle shell and I hated what I did, so I sanded it off. So there's a good lesson. You can sand off any painting that you don't like. Now, I wasn't able to sand it off perfectly, so maybe there's just a tiny hint of the paint that was on there from before, but I did need to redo the weathering with the black and white mixed with water. So that's what I'm doing here, and you can see that in the painting that I did before, I put a border on the turtle of the cascade and also just the apple barrel white. I didn't mind the border, so I didn't sand that off. And then I thought that white border was a little too much, so I just painted over that with the cascade. So now the turtle shell has just one thick border of the cascade paint. And I decided then to go around the sides of the shell with the same technique with the lace ribbon and the grotto paint. So I am just stenciling that on. Now I've used the Dollar Tree plastic starfish to lay out where I want to stamp starfish onto the turtle's shell. And I'm using this Craftsmart Tuscan red paint and mixing just a little bit Deco Art Burnt umber with that to make it just a little bit browner. And just painting that onto my sponge stamps and stamping that onto the turtle shell. Now those original table legs aren't level across the top. That middle piece is a little bit higher than where the screws go. So I needed to build up my turtle where those 3 screws are going to screw into the turtle. So what seemed to be the right size is one of these number 20 wood biscuits and then one of the tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree. And together those were the right height. So I positioned those where they needed to be on the turtle, and then I just used wood glue to glue those down to the turtle. Now for the legs themselves, I wasn't sure what color to paint them. I actually like the color that the table is. It's not coming across well on the video, but it's sort of a pale grayish blue, but it's not in good shape. It's a little bit rusty, and it doesn't really go with my turtle. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clean these legs up. So I'm using my vacuum cleaner, and it turned out one of the legs had some dirt stuck in it, so I used a craft stick to get that dirt out, and then I used a flashlight to make sure there was no more dirt hiding in there that I couldn't see. And then I used this Krud Kutter. I used this a couple of years ago when I was painting exterior doors to clean the doors off before painting them, and it works very well. So I used that to clean off the table. And now I could have made the choice to unscrew the legs from that Y piece in the middle and paint everything separately, because I'm not comfortable with painting over screws. I think that's a little bit slipshod, but I really didn't want to try to paint these 3 legs in several passes. So if I ever do decide to take this whole thing apart, I will pay for this decision, but I am just going to paint it all in one piece. Now this is some very inexpensive spray paint that I bought at Lowe's. It's Project Source spray paint. The color is flat black, and it can be used outside. And I have used this before, so far with success. So I'm hopeful that I'll continue to have success with this. And I'm not going to be leaving this table outside to get ruined like I did with my Monstera leaf table last year. So this should be fine. So I'm just going to give this a couple of coats of this spray paint. Now that I've attached those little wood pieces to the bottom of the turtle and the glue is all dry, I'm just going to do the technique again on the bottom of the turtle with the cascade paint with the grotto paint dragged through it. And now I can glue the turtle's shell to the turtle, now that both are all painted and dry, and I'm going to use Gorilla Wood Glue to do that. Now I wanted to do the wood glue before I screwed the bottom of the turtle to the shell, because I was afraid if I tried to screw it together that the shell would shift and it would no longer line up with the turtle. So once the wood glue had dried, I turned the turtle over and I drilled 3 pilot holes and screwed 3 screws in. Now for the depth of my plywood and my pallet wood, I used 1-inch wood screws, which of course I didn't have. I had 3/4 inch and I had 1 1/4, but we have all these boxes of just random hardware, and I was able to find 3 1-inch wood screws in my box of random hardware, and that's what I used. Now with that all screwed together, I'm going to give him a coat of Varathane Spar Urethane. This is oil-based and this is exterior urethane. I gave the top of the turtle 3 coats 2 hours apart, and I wasn't thrilled with this. I had done a test piece. I had a piece of pallet wood which I painted on with the chalk paint, and I sprayed this spar urethane on it and I thought it looked fine, but I felt like it gave a little bit of a yellow tint to some of the top of the turtle. Once I had done the 3 coats on the top of the turtle, I gave it 12 hours to dry because I didn't want to put it upside down and then spray the bottom, just in case it hadn't completely cured or cured enough to be put upside down. And then I did the bottom of the turtle. And now finally time to assemble. So I put the legs on top of the 3 pieces of wood that I had put on the turtle, and I just drilled pilot holes and then screwed the original rusty screws back in. And here it is. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. So what did you think of our table makeover with the turtle top? please tell me in the comments and tell me how you would have painted the top, or maybe you wouldn't have put a turtle on the table at all. I made this turtle. I patterned it after a turtle that I made a couple of years ago. This is just like a standing decor piece. And originally I was going to do the top of the table like this. This is jute twine, and I stained it and then painted this pattern on. But I really don't like to do the same thing twice. So I decided to do something that's just maybe a little bit more coastal for the turtle table. And I still have the original top, so I'm gonna have to figure out a use for that, and maybe that will be an upcoming project once I figure out what I'm going to do with it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.